All right, I'm going to do about 10, 15 minutes of background for what's happening here in the Asheville ecosystem, and then bring up 3 entrepreneurs who are building companies here, the next generation of high-growth headquartered companies here. So I want to start off by letting you know that in every Western Carolina county, that's like everything from Charlotte to Tennessee and Georgia, there have been more deaths than births in every single county. Just stick that in the pocket. This is a very rural area. There's about 1 million people in these 25 counties. Our population should be declining, but it's not because of in-migration, because of folks like KP and Barry who are buying houses here. We have an incredible amount of tech talent coming to this area, especially in the last 3 years. And it's really a generational shift that's taken a couple decades in the making to get Asheville to this inflection point. And so today I'm going to talk about what's going on here, how our region is having a drastic shift, and then you'll meet the folks actually doing the work. So I'm with Venture Asheville. I'm the director. I've been there for over 4 years. The whole group started in 2014. We do mentorship, financing, and events for entrepreneurs in the region, really to build capacity. Here's our structure. We're part of the Economic Development Coalition for Asheville-Buncombe County. So 28 years ago, the city, the county, and the Chamber of Commerce, everyone stepping on each other's toes trying to do economic development. And at that time, economic development is land a factory in your town and hope that they create a career ladder and hundreds of jobs for decades to come, right? That's very classic economic development, and the industry jargon for that is site selection. You want them to select your site. The next step beyond that is BRE, again, a little jargony, business retention and expansion. So as your company is growing really strong and really fast, and they're like, hey, we need to add a new call center. We got to add this kind of back office solution. Where are we going to find an additional 60 jobs? There's a whole department in the EDC. Their whole job is to figure out how to keep you here while you grow here. There's also workforce development. Everyone's heard about the labor shortage, which is really interesting because the future here, we all know the secret is robots. But if you talk to any economic developer, they're trying to figure out how to create more career paths for high school kids to go into careers in our factories here. So there's a real mismatch into what we all know and believe and what policymakers are still pushing. Anyway, what we do is right in the center, new venture creation. We're trying to create the next generation of high growth ventures in our area that can start here, grow here, and get an exit. We don't really expect anybody to IPO. Sorry if that's what your plan was for Lee. We're hoping for big fat acquisitions. So I don't know why I'm getting my hanging S there, but when I tell folks what we do at Venture Asheville, we build entrepreneurs and get startups funding. That's it. That's our whole scope. If it falls out of that scope, we're not going to work on it. We'll pass off to one of our friends. And we do that through a host of initiatives. Most of them are on here. We have a couple kinds of mentorship we run. Our flagship is Elevate. That's based on MIT's venture mentoring service. If anyone uses MIT's VMS in their home area. We've licensed MXP from GrowthX Capital out in Nashville. Financing-wise, we rarely cut checks. It's more important that we have relationships with funders. We manage a local angel group. We've got a listserv of about 100 local angels who are looking for deals. We pipeline stuff their way. And there's only so much capital in town. So a lot of times we will do every year we do a road trip. I'll tell you about that in a moment. Where you take folks out of town to raise money somewhere else. And then a lot of what we do is partnerships, programs, and events. Like our partnership here at the Hatch Innovation Hub, we try to drive all of our traffic into this building. We want all of our founders to have a desk and an office here. We want our mentors hanging out here using their conference rooms. We want our investors hanging out here, getting lunch and getting coffee here, having conferences here, because we believe every ecosystem needs a center of gravity. Right? Every region needs a central hub. So if you're in Atlanta, you've got what's happening at Tech, you've got the Atlanta Tech Village. Folks in Austin, you got Capital Factory. Anybody from the Triangle, you got Capital Factory. I'm sorry, you got American Underground. Right? Every region has something. Asheville hasn't. Western Carolina's 1 million people have not had something until Charlie. This was a flea market. This was a movie theater at one point, and he's turned down offers on the building because he believes in the vision that our region needs a central hub, a place of density to drive more of that, as Terrence called it, more of that intentional congruence, to get more people aligned with the same vision of what our region can be. We believe it's in high growth entrepreneurship. I'll show you the stats in a moment. Our mentorship program elevates, had about 80, 90 companies go through it. That's just a snapshot of a handful of logos. You'll see the breakdown. A solid third comes from tech, some kind of app or tech-enabled product. About 30 are CPG. We have lots and lots of food and beverage products that are highly scalable. We will not work with a restaurant or a restaurant group. Work with some brewers if they're doing more distribution. We're not going to help somebody open up more tap rooms. We're not going to help somebody open up more restaurants or build a restaurant group. But what you're seeing with, for example, Katie Button, our James Beard Award-winning chef from Karate, she's creating an online version of her restaurant, Karate at Home. How to have that memorable experience over their food at your home. That is a high growth angle we can help push a founder towards. Outdoor gear is a growing part of the high growth industry. But here's why it's really important. So the average salary in Buncombe County is just over $46,000, right? That's weighed down by so much leisure, hospitality, unskilled labor work. It's not really unskilled, but that's what the market calls it. It's about, again, $47,000 a year, 46. Through our program, this is just the jobs, salaries, revenues, and capital raised while companies are in our mentorship, which is 1 to 2 years long on average. It doesn't count our companies when they graduate on and the impact they have, but just the direct impact from our little mentorship program. And I should also mention, because a lot of fiscally minded folks in here, our budget's $50,000 a year to do everything we want to do, from our events, the news we do, the road trips, the hosting the mentorship, the receptions, only $50,000 a year. Help create over 350 jobs at an average salary of $78K. Those companies in our program earn $92 million in revenue and raise about $45 million. And I have to clarify that.
Repeat that? Sorry, just say budget $50,000 a year, these are the results.
Mm-hmm. So think about the ROI. What does it take for, I love to pick on Pratt Whitney. If you guys drove here from the airport on I-26, halfway up, you've seen a mountaintop mostly leveled and a 1 million square foot factory put in, right? DOT's building a $40 million exit on the highway. Golden Leaf Foundation is building a $6 million bridge. The land was sold for $1. The amount of economic incentives that go to big businesses and the ROI for the community is nothing like what we can produce. So we have electeds coming to Hatch on Thursday. I would love you to talk to them. So this is just while companies are like in our monthly programming, our mentorship meetings, our peer mentorship we do. Gosh, last week, 2 weeks ago, we announced one of our companies just hit $100 million in revenue for the year, and they weren't actively in our mentorship, so we can't count that metric, right? So we can say our portfolio is producing at $120 million, but it wasn't actively being mentored, so we don't get that huge number. And there's a whole argument now in economic development that all economic developers are metric driven, which nurtures more competition between economic developers, not collaboration between economic developers, even in a region like ours of Western Carolina. But that's a whole other talk for another day. So we have a demo day for these companies. Every year we've done one of these, a check is written in the room. We have one coming up in 2 weeks, October 19th. If anybody wants to come back and see the latest crop of folks at the pre-seed stage, that'll be October 19th here at Devil's Foot. An innovation we started was the road trip. So we did this, we've done this twice. Take about $2,000 of our $50,000 budget. We'll pack a van full of founders, drive them across the state. One year we did do Nashville, Atlanta, and Chattanooga. Before I knew KP, I'm sure it would have been much more successful had we had our Atlanta connection. But for 4 pitch events, packaged folks in a van, we brought back $1.4 million. So again, think about the ROI on this kind of initiative for a community that's really going to create those high-paying jobs in high-growth companies. We're looking at doing this again sometime in the spring, sometime in March or May. So if any of your communities are in the Southeast and you'd love to host us, let us know. We'd love to bring a party and bring some of what happens in Asheville. We're meticulous about measurement. I'd also invite you all back on December 15th at the Orange Peel. You all should have seen the Orange Peel downtown. It's like the #1 concert venue in the Southeast. We do our rankings of the 15 fastest growing companies, startups in our region. It's a huge party. And we do awards for Entrepreneur of the Year, Mentor of the Year, Investor of the Year. You were a finalist for Best Startup to Work For. That was a new award last year. And some of the stats from that, so it's just a snapshot in time. Last year, those 15 companies, earned $68 million in revenue. The average age of those companies is 3 to 4 years old. So this is really folks hitting that hockey stick growth. We have some interesting stats, right? The lifetime revenues, the stats of what our female founder percentage is, what our co-founder percentage is, and we can say, you know, to really make it in 2021, it helps. Certainly it's obvious to have a co-founder, and that was the food and bev and healthcare really running that one that year. In the past, it's swung much more to tech, it's swung much more to health. It does vary year by year because these folks are determined by compounded annual growth rate. So if you guys want to come back in December, it's a great time. We chart density. Again, some leftovers in the chart. Apologies about that. I shouldn't say chart title, I should say something else. To know how we stand at a snapshot in time and how we rank across the state or the Southeast, we use a Kaufman metric on density. That's new ventures created per capita. In 2009, peak recession, we were about 10 and change. By 2014, you had a lot of consolidation, and our new venture density was something like 7.5. 2020, 2021, you had record-breaking new venture creation in every state, and our score is like 17.8 right now. So that's new ventures per 1,000 people, which is good. It's better than Asheville's ever done. When you look at it statewide, though, Wake County, that's Raleigh, almost 54 new ventures per 1,000 people. Right? We rank somewhere between Wilmington and what's down there? Cumberland, which I think is maybe Hickory, that's Catawba. You see the new venture density across the state, or your rank in comparison to that. What I want to mention is, again, how undense or the lack of density in this region should have a detrimental effect on our startups. Wake County, so that equates to like 54,000 new ventures created in 2021. That's equal to every adult living in Haywood County, which is the county just to the west of us where KP is now a resident. Like, that's insane, right? So that's why there's more concentration, why there's more funding, why there's more talent in your urban cores. But this is a real shift happening now, and we're seeing density get driven into the urban core of this rural area. Where am I going from here? So historically, our region has been driven by leisure and hospitality. Outside of the hospital, our biggest employer is the Biltmore. Imagine you all heard of it or seen it on your way in. Leisure and hospitality makes up roughly 30% of all jobs in the county. So that's why our wages are so low. Strategically, the economic development has initiatives to diversify industries and incomes. So that's why Pratt Whitney was such a big win. Avionics and aerospace is always a good market to be in. The growth in the last 3 years here in human and fiscal capital is really exceptional. So human-wise, just the in-migration, again, it's not organic growth driving this region. It's in-migration. I think it's important to remember. And the fiscal capital, with the Dogwood Health Trust being established, the $2 billion trust to be spent, $50 to $75 million in our region every year across the 4 social determinants of health, which they consider economic opportunity, housing, education, and access to healthcare, health wellness. That helped create the PISGA Fund, which is a $50 million venture fund managed by Hatteras Venture Partners out in Raleigh or Durham. And they have to spend that money within 6 years only on health tech, and it has to be in this region. So they will relocate companies to the Asheville area. They will invest in companies here. You got to have a positive job number in the area. Because of our job growth, or really, how do you call it? The job title growth in our region in the last 3 years, LinkedIn ranked Asheville the 7th fastest growing tech hub in the nation because of the percent change from 2019 and 2022. Last year, the IEDC gave us a gold ranking for our innovation programs, for how we build entrepreneurs, our whole structure of Venture Asheville. Our digital nomads group has been around for about 15 months, has almost 1,000 members in it. That continues to grow. About 10% of those people are truly nomads, like van lifers who come in town for an event and then go on to the next town. It's really remote workers who've never been organized. So we have a lot of resting capital, we have a lot of resting talent. A lot of what we do through the vehicle of the Hatch Innovation Hub is create that, again, Terrence called it, I thought it was so smart, intentional congruency. We've been calling that social fabric. Right? Social fabric is the underlying mechanism or values of an ecosystem that binds us together. It's so easy for us because we have this big bad wolf, this antagonist of leisure and hospitality, these low-paying jobs, these tourists who come in and eat in our restaurants. We can't go there anymore. They tear up our infrastructure. I'm like, yeah, there's some truth to that, but because of that, that leads to immigration, right? If you look at it not as a drop in a snapshot in time, a drop in a moment here, but longitudinally, like bringing people in is what brings you in the first time. We hope you fall in love with it, and we want you to stay here and give back to our community. And there really is that value of once you land here, the criticism is you'll make it just like the place you came from. We find that to really not be true. We find people come here and they want to give, they want to help, and they see all the potential. Terrence said in 2018 he knew this place was going to blow up. I think a lot of people feel that way. They're drawn to this region. We hope maybe if you are too, we'll talk to you later. But to really tell you what's going on and what's next, we're going to invite our 3 founders up so you can meet some founders who build the next generation of Asheville's businesses. So Lee Lance, Dan Wayne, Alex Feisley, y'all can pick why don't you take these seats and I'll come over here so folks you can see more, get more face time.
G'day.
Do you mind if I stand? Okay, thank you. All right. I don't like reading bios. I think it's more fun to tell them to explain who they are themselves. Maybe I will sit. I'm feeling very awkward now. Lee Lance.
Yeah.
Lee Lance.
How's it going, Jeff?
Is that short for Leonard?
Nope.
No? Just Lee.
That's it.
30 seconds or a minute. Who are you? What's your business?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of EcoBot, and we've been here for a few days. You probably met some folks from my team. We're a Shadow Ventures portfolio company. And EcoBot is a platform that accelerates environmental permitting ahead of construction and then allows our customers to work with an increasingly distributed workforce to accomplish the permitting and then leverage the data collected for permitting into sustainability and resilience improvements throughout the construction lifecycle. And we came through the ecosystem here. I don't know how far you want me to go into that, but all the way from, we've been here the whole time. Save it? Okay, we're saving it. Okay, great.
All right, Alex Feisley.
Hey.
Who are you? What's your business?
I'm Alex Feisley. My business is NetMaker, so we're a virtual networking startup. It's focused on cloud and distributed environments. So our secret sauce is this protocol that lets it run about 10 times faster than standard virtual networks. And so we're focused on these distributed environments like IoT, edge, and really next-gen architectures.
Very good.
G'day. Hi, I'm Dan Wayne.
Beat me to it. Dan Wayne.
I thought I'd cut off the Australia joke
You saw
immediately.
coming out. Yeah.
One of the founders of Bramble, so we're B2B SaaS. It's a business optimization platform. That's what I've spent my career doing. It's kind of how I ended up in the US. But essentially what we do is we work with companies that have a lot of line management roles. So think insurance companies, think about a claims department where you've got thousands of people just working through processes. What Bramble does is it sits over the top of their tech stack, it gives them sort of real-time metrics, and then really importantly, it's really used to kind of teach managers how to become leaders. So that a lot of the challenges we see is not so much the data and access to the data, it's people don't know what to actually do with that data and how to run a productive and cohesive team.
So when we showed that chart before, this is not outdoor gear products. This is not CPG. This is like we call real tech. Like these are real tech startups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do have some pretty nice water bottles in the other end. I don't know if that counts.
We don't have any water bottles just yet, sorry.
And just for funsies, how long have you lived in Asheville? When did you start your business? And like, what's your background?
Yep.
Because you actually have a background doing a similar model, not exactly this business, but the playbook was written for you.
Kinda, yeah. So I moved to the US in 2014. So I was originally up in New York and Boston, and I was working for like a niche consultancy. We kind of straddled between consulting and software. And so I was good at it, but also fortunate, and I ended up leaving my role as Chief Operating Officer there with one of the guys that I used to work with, and we started Bramble because we saw an opportunity to do away with that consulting effort. Like, there's just so much you can do with tech now. You don't really need a team of consultants to go into a business anymore if you're clever with the way you set it up.
What year did you move to Asheville?
Last year. And really, it was personal reason. Like, my wife is American. I was only supposed to be here for 2 years, in the States for 2 years. I met my now wife. So she's got roots in the area. She loves it up here. We were down in Charlotte prior to this, and we just had a kid. So we were keen to kind of come up here and raise a family up here.
Great.
Yeah.
Alex?
Yeah. So I'm originally from upstate New York. It's really cold up there. Moved down to DC to work at Deloitte for a while. After that, I moved down to Raleigh to work for IBM. And then a year and a half ago, I moved to Asheville to start NetMaker and to kind of start in a new place. I just love Asheville a lot. My grandpa lived here and I always wanted to move here. And so got out of Raleigh and headed over here.
And when did you come to Asheville?
I'm his grandpa. I've been here most of my life. Moved here when I was 3 in the late 70s. So how about that? But Asheville historically has been a town that you couldn't get a job. You had to go somewhere else and bring it back with you. So Cleveland and San Francisco and DC, and then moved back here as an adult with a job in 2008. So yeah, been back here since then.
And what's your background in those jobs?
My background comes from, my experience has been in brand-driven software applications, mostly for enterprise.
Cool.
So, yeah.
So you've lived in big cities. You've lived in big cities.
Mm-hmm.
You've lived in the startup hub of the South, according to CNBC. So how does this ecosystem compare to the Boston, New York, Raleigh, Cleveland's, everywhere else? Who wants to jump in first?
Yeah, I'll go quickly on it. So I just think, so for one, like, I think getting tapped into like the startup, and it's partly because that's where like my head's at now, but I think just the community has been really quite supportive. I think in terms of talent, like we've got, I mean, I think with the move, like with COVID, you know, that's part of the reason we came up here, because you can kind of work anywhere now. And I know from talking, you know, we're building out our customer success team at the moment, and I know that it's, I think it's a kicker. It's definitely an appeal to be able to kind of live up here and work as well. Yeah.
Yeah, as to double down on that, I do think the remote work thing really changed everything.
Yeah.
I mean, if it wasn't for remote work, maybe I'd still be in Raleigh, but both me and my co-founder moved here from Raleigh, and it's a much more incredible place to live than Raleigh. Sure, they have IBM and Red Hat, Amazon, they got all the big tech businesses there, but it doesn't really matter when everyone's working out of their houses. Right. There's no point to just be adjacent to them. So I just love the culture here so much more, and I think it opens yourself up a lot more as well to live in a place that you love while you're working on your business.
Yeah.
And you haven't felt like a drawback from being in these major metros? Have you missed out on any opportunities or I don't know, like accelerators, or I'm trying to lead you to something here.
Oh yeah, I mean,
have you missed out on anything because you're in Asheville and you're not in a major metro?
Well, yeah, I mean, certain things changed as well. Like we got into Y Combinator, we're the first company, I guess, from Western North Carolina to get into there, and got in during the pandemic, so they started doing the remote first stuff, and so it didn't really matter that we were over here. I'd say there are probably local networking events I could get in on a lot more. Like they did run a lot of networking events out of SF that we could have gone to, but I think one big thing to keep in mind is just cost of living. Like starting a startup in San Francisco, if I was living that cost of living and running the business on that cost of living, like I'd have so much less money to work with. For that amount, I could fly out to any networking event in the country and still be saving money. So that's kind of the way I look at it.
think it's like, sorry, I'll just jump in quickly on that. So we sell, like check signers, or people that we're selling to are kind of like, the EVPs of finance, operations, transformation. It's like, I feel like Asheville I'd never heard of it until my wife told me about it, but I think it punches above its weight. Like, I feel like most of the people that I'm pitching to, wherever they are in the country, have come here at some point or want to go here. So it does, like, it's a silly little thing, but it does actually kind of, break down the barriers a little bit for the first meeting. Yeah.
There's a surprising number. There's a surprising number of people I've talked to where I don't expect them to know Asheville.
Right.
They're like, oh, I love Asheville.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So these two guys started businesses during the pandemic. So, remote first, remote by nature. You were, what, a year and a half before the pandemic?
Right. Yeah, we had hired our first employee in November right before the pandemic and got the keys to our office on literally the Friday before the Monday work from home order. So if you want to blame anyone's karma, I guess it's mine. So yeah, I moved, I was running an agency, a software development company, and we were already remote, and I started that in 2006. So when we moved here in 2008, it was for a remote work job. So yeah, I've been doing the remote thing for a while, so the pandemic was just kind of like, well, okay, I guess I'll just keep doing that. But as far as the ecosystem, every time I've needed something, whatever stage we were in, we have an idea, we don't really know what to do with it, all the way up through you actually introducing me to KP. This ecosystem has offered everything that we've needed. And then, like you guys are saying, if we need to go get something else, somewhere else, it's certainly easy enough to do it. Went out to SaaStr last year, and it was great. It was great to be there for a week, and it was great to come back here.
Yeah. I don't think KP's in the room anymore, but that KP reached out to me saying, hey, I'm thinking about buying a house in Candler. What's the scene like? How do I get involved? And I was like, hey, every month, we do this peer mentorship group where all of our founders in our program come together. It's a 2-hour meeting. The first hour we have some kind of expert in some subject matter, either teach something cool or do an AMA, whatever. And the second hour is just for the founders to, you guys know, just like chit chat. And it's like, I gotta fire somebody, what do I do? And they help each other out, all kinds of things. So we brought KP into one of those on Zoom, and you weren't even elevated at the time anymore. I was like, Lee, you gotta be in this call, man. You gotta be here. And so that kind of keeps happening. So one example I'll give is Jeff Immelt, the former CEO of GE. He's created a $10 million family office venture fund here in town. And same idea, he reaches out and he says, hey, I want to get to know the scene. So we intentionally pipeline his day of all these funding ready companies that have open rounds or just opened their rounds. And he's already writing checks. Some of your colleagues' rounds in some of your cohort. And we'd love to see that. We think that we know talent, or the funding ready companies are here, and the funding keeps coming in. And so we find a lot of our job is to make that alignment happen and connect those dots.
Yeah, I think that the way that the pandemic has accelerated remote work, not just work, but the ability for startups to interact with venture, is just fundamentally different. We raised our seed round in November of 2018, and that was the last time that we did an in-person pitch. We raised 2 more rounds. I didn't meet anyone at Shadow Ventures before they wrote the check. And we've raised just over $3 million, and just in the past few months are starting to meet some of those VCs from other places like Denver and St. Louis, and so yeah. Great place to be.
I've got one more question for the panel, and we'll open it up to anything you all have. Is in your wildest dreams, right? If you had a magic wand, what would you change about this ecosystem, or what would this ecosystem become?
I love what KP said about the vision for success for Shadow. I mean, it's for the portfolio companies to become LPs, and I think for me, it's an opportunity to run a startup within an ecosystem and get support from that ecosystem that's end to end, and create opportunities and excitement for employees of these startups to have their own ideas and have an ecosystem that they can get plugged into to figure out whatever their vision is and go after it. So I think just as the ecosystem continues to grow up, to have more people that have started here in this ecosystem and come through Elevate and been part of Hatch, to be able to create opportunities for more companies to start and grow and exit here.
Yeah, I do think the tech scene is growing. It's still small. Like, we're remote first. We would love to hire more people locally. We have a couple hires locally, but we need very specialized talent, and that only comes with a certain size of the tech workforce. So I think it's going to get there, and we're totally okay with it for now. It's just a question of when it's going to get to that point of just growing that tech talent pool. And we're seeing it like every couple of months. I'll network with someone who, you know, they're just coming in because they work remote, and that's kind of the new model. Is I meet someone who works at AWS or meet someone who works at Google or all these other companies. They're just like, yeah, I live here because I love it. And I think that just has to continue to happen. Is it's a place people love. People live here because they love it. So we're going to keep getting those remote workers here, which will grow up that specialized talent pool.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a bit cheap. Like, I'm just gonna piggyback on that. Like, I feel exactly that way as well. Like, we're kind of the same. We're very remote first at the moment. We want to build we'd like to have like a central hub, but I think it's just, you know, it's a great place to live. It's a huge perk for people to come up here. Especially, you know, with the way, especially tech, like, it isn't gonna go back to everybody working in offices again. So, yeah.
Right, yeah. But the talent is here.
Right.
We were hiring for manager of customer success, and Kim is our manager of customer success, and she sent me a message on LinkedIn. It wasn't an actual application that said, I can't believe there's somebody in Asheville who knows what SaaS is and what customer success is. I'd at least just like to get a coffee, which was probably the best cover letter I've ever received. But I think that there's going to be more and more of that because there's a lot of people here working for other companies that are here because they want to live here. And as really, I think the number one job of a CEO is to build a culture, and you build a product on top of that culture, and that product is what serves your customers. And people who want to live somewhere like Asheville are the kind of people that you want to work with every day.
This is super anecdotal, but we bought up here like May last year. It's been interesting, like in our street, like I don't know, let's say there's 10 houses, there's probably been 6 that have sold since us moving in. I thought it was me at first, but it's been interesting watching like the rotation, like, because it is people, like our new neighbors, they work in banks down in Charlotte. They don't need to be in Charlotte. Like, they might have to go down there once every couple of weeks, but they can, you know, work remotely. And it's just interesting watching the street transition from being like a little bit older to younger professionals that can kind of work anywhere.
My street's like that, but based on my work and my wife's work, we're the only couple who actually leaves the house during the day.
Serious?
And you look down, you know, a dozen houses on the street, and it's either retirees, right, or it's remote workers.
Yeah.
The whole street.
Yeah.
Which is kind of where Asheville's going, which is going to become a top-heavy market. So we need more robots. We really do. I want to share one hypothesis I have, and then again I'll open it up. With about 1,000 folks in our digital nomad group, right? I've had many conversations with these folks that pull me aside, like on the down low. They're like, "Hey, I'm only going to work this place for like 2 more years, and I'm all vested, and I want to start a business." And so I'm pretty excited that because they're coming here because they can thrive in a remote world, and we have the best quality of living. Like, a lot of rural places aren't as pretty as Asheville.
Right.
They don't have the beer scene, they don't have the food scene, they don't have all the amenities that we have. It's a huge advantage why we can be so much more sustainable going forward. But I can't tell you how many conversations these folks are saying, yeah, I have 1 more year, 2 more years, and I want to start a business.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like our talent caliber is really going to level up. Or the other end is those folks who are working that don't want to start a business, and when they naturally do their job search, I really hope they look locally first. Right? I hope they look at one of your companies before, you know, yeah, it can still be remote or flex, but they have more options looking here. All right, that's all I got. That's my dream. Any questions from you all to our panelists, our entrepreneurs?
All right, okay, my question is, when you were beginning your business or that sort of thing here, did you find it confusing to which go with Venture Asheville, go with Mountain Resource, like, what led you to go down with Venture Asheville?
I mean, we went down all the paths, so that was our answer. We did pitch breakfast, which was the intro to Jeff, which we did Hatch demo day, and then we got into Elevate and went through that program. So I mean, we did them all, and I think I love the idea of those being better coordinated. I think there's definitely an opportunity to still hopefully preserve all of this because they each serve a pretty unique purpose, for sure.
You guys?
Oh, well, we're not currently in Elevate, but one of the first people I talked to when I came to Asheville was Jeff, and he's been super helpful. So just getting to know you really has been helpful, like getting to do the MXP program and just becoming familiar with what there is in Asheville. So I got to help. Thank you for that.
Yeah, similar, like met Jeff first. And then I think, like we'd looked at other we got accepted to a couple of accelerators. We kind of, I don't know if it was a mistake or not, that's another whole thing, but we kind of shied away from that. The reason I joined up with the mentor program here is it just seemed to be, like, sounds cheesy, but it's just a bit of care in selecting the mentors, where some of the ones we were looking at, it was just like you're kind of thrown into a cohort and you just feel like, you know, like it doesn't feel very tailored at all. Whereas I felt here, like there was a lot of care taken to actually get me the right mix of mentors. Yeah.
Yeah, we do a lot of, it's in our training, we call it gatekeeping.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of people we don't bring in as mentors. First rule is no assholes. And then from there, it's nobody who could possibly profit off of you.
Right.
There can never be a potential for a transaction between one of our mentors and one of our founders. In Nick's slides earlier, he was talking about the altruism of angels and VCs, and we use altruism as one of our values also.
Mm-hmm.
That by keeping such a high barrier and free of conflicts of interest, and that leads to ultimate confidentiality.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, it allows a founder to be completely raw and open with their mentors. And without that safe space to be completely open with these folks, the founders don't get the most help possible. Mm-hmm. You know, we tell folks like in our screening, it's like, what are your weaknesses? And don't turn this into a job interview question where you turn your weaknesses into like, I work too hard. Like, don't do that. Like, really, what are your weaknesses so we know how to help you? So it's a bit of establishing that candor and that familiarity.
Yeah, our mentors in the Elevate program were so, like you said, so much care given.
Yeah.
We did ask for special permission to work with them. We hired one of our mentors to be our first manager of customer success, and the other two are still advisors to the company outside of the program. So we still regularly meet with our mentors from back in 2018.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and so the rule is that if a founder requests that kind of partnership from a mentor, it's allowed, it's kosher.
Yeah.
But it can never come from the mentor. They can never come looking for deals, never come looking for work or any kind of, you know, kickback for their efforts. And it has to be altruistic, it has to be volunteering. We've only had like one or two issues where we had to tell somebody like, you got to cut that out. We've had mentors become co-founders, investors, employees, advisors, you name it. And we love it, we celebrate it. And again, it's all in our training and onboarding. It has to come from the founder. You cannot come to this program looking for an opportunity. Other questions?
So 18 years ago when I left Dale and moved to Asheville, which I've never been to, literally it was a Google search on best small town in America.
Right.
Parachuted in, asked around, where's the tech scene? Nobody had a clue what
Right.
it meant. There was clearly none at all. And we started Hatch 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
My question to you guys is, coming from Austin, I have a huge scale bias.
Right.
You know, because tech was just resident in the DNA.
Mm-hmm.
I still feel like we're a mountain away from getting to a sustainable ecosystem. You've given me a little hope that maybe we're closer, but what are the things we're missing other than capital, which I think is our big Achilles heel?
Yeah.
What else?
I think a lot more events like this are really helpful. Every time I go to a tech event or conference or networking event locally, I feel more engaged with the community. You know, you go to one of those big cities, and I think that's one of the main things I would be missing is I could look up every single day a different tech event to go to. Obviously, a small city, there just aren't that many events in general, but the more of those opportunities there are to work with people locally just in your off hours, I think the more that community starts to build up.
And are those content events, or you think they're networking?
Both, definitely.
I'd say,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
We throw good parties.
Yeah.
You need more content.
I think that's,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with that. Like, I mean, we find, again, like the move to remote means like, you know, we do our lead gen just via LinkedIn, we'll get our meetings, we do it all over, you know, over Zoom. But it is that kind of, you know, that human element where you're able to kind of, you know, meet someone and then get referred to somebody else. Like that does, we are kind of missing that a little bit. Not a huge deal, but it would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, sorry, you go ahead.
You got your exercise room. What else you need?
That's right. Yeah. No, we got a dog park. That's the only thing we're missing here. Yeah.
As Lou was saying before, you know, he thought you had to leave Asheville, get some big job, make some money, and then come back.
Yeah.
And that young professional workforce has always been hard for us, tough nut to crack. You know, we don't have the big universities, we don't have tech transfer offices, we don't have graduate programs out here. That's always been really hard to pull young professionals in. Sean and Eric have done a great job energizing the YPA group in town, which has been great partnerships here at Hatch. And I'll quote my predecessor, Josh Dorfman, who said that when the cool, attractive 20-somethings are at your events, your ecosystem has arrived. And we hit that once in a while. It's becoming more and more frequent.
I have a thesis, actually, on this. I think there's probably a lot more capital in Nashville than a lot of us realize. You probably know better than any of us. But it's not like founders are seed, right? It's kind
I
of,
call it lazy capital.
yeah, lazy capital. I get that. Are you familiar with the Startup Chile program? I don't think they do it anymore, but like the country of Chile, for years they had sort of like a Y Combinator type thing where they say everyone's going to apply at once and they'll get say 10,000 applications and we'll choose say 50 companies and give them $100,000 to do whatever they want to. They just have to move to Chile, right? Because what founders from all across the world are going to move there to start their company? Zero, right? But it created this huge influx, and I don't know exactly how it worked out for the country. I don't, but something like that kind of solves the chicken or the egg problem for a place like Asheville. Like Asheville checks all the boxes for high quality of life, like smart people, interesting stuff going on. It's just the chicken or the egg of how do you get the money here if they're not the founders here. And so I would love to see something either coming from a government program or some individual trying to have make it more of a competition. Here's 20 spots going out. Everyone apply for the accelerator, $100,000. And even if it's from the city or the county or something like that, they can take the equity. It doesn't have to be a gift. It just has to be, here's some office space, some money to get started, that type of thing. I think it solves the chicken or the egg problem.
You know, so I've been involved with that. The math is pretty interesting. You'll have two founders move to Chile and get $100,000, and their parents will wire them another $50,000 because they can't get by on that. So it actually money. The good thing about startups is they burn all their cash. They're like savings money, right? You burn it all, and so you have three founders that go to Chile for a year. They can't live on 100. Their parents wire them money so they can actually eat. So it actually ends up generating a couple $100,000. It gets flown in restaurants and rent in the community. It was a great hack. I mean, they did it for about 5 years. They had a couple successes, but when I've worked with economic development groups, just understand when a startup gets $100, they spend 110. Pratt and Whitney, they just hoard the cash and give dividends to their shareholders. We don't issue dividends; we spend all our money.
Spend more here.
I guess on the state level, there's NC IDEA on the state level, which kind of accomplishes that a bit. We got the micro grant very early on, and that was a bit of an incentive to stay in North Carolina, at least, it's only $10,000. Was like, if we left North Carolina, we have to give it back. So I think it does kind of have that outsized impact where,
Right.
you know,
Was it a publicized competition?
yeah.
Yeah, it is pretty big. All right, that's it for us. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you guys.
Thanks, buddy.